Retrofuture.
Looking to accessorize? Check out steamywonders.de for steampunk-inspired jewelry, gadgets, and other handmade items.
Okay, great. In that case, let's for form, let's start announcing again. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Radio Retrofuture. We had some technical difficulties here on the show, but now it should be done. So, welcome in, everyone, for tuning in so early into the show. And today we have a guest from Germany, Marina Marisha, who is going to talk about a little bit about, well, her costuming, I suppose. So, let's just start with who you are and what you do.
Well, I call it Costumier-fantasier. So I design and handmade costumes for, well, basically everything. Private customers, there could be projects, there could be performing artists, there could be bands, anybody who is in front of camera or in video. Anything I make for myself, because I also pose for historical fiction book covers. So it's like this, alternative wedding dresses also, all kinds of weird costumes based on historical fashion.
All right. Is that how did that start for you? Were you really into fantasy or historical costuming? Where did the young Marisha start?
Well, it started when I couldn't go to kindergarten when I was little. So my grandmother was looking after me, and the way we would pass the day is that she would teach me all kinds of craftiness. So we learned how to cross stitch and how to make little clothes for little dollies and those kind of things. And then at one point I saw Gone with the Wind accidentally. Yeah, I didn't know what it was or what was happening, but I saw those dresses with those tiny waists and huge skirts, and they were like amazing to me, and I wanted to recreate that. So I started making them for my dolls. And finally, the most iconic dress from the movies, the barbecue dress. And I was thinking then that I've seen that fabric somewhere that just looked so familiar. And then, hey, Mother's kitchen curtains. So without thinking very much, I just went for it. And when Mother came back home that evening, she was not impressed because there was a big circle cut out of in the middle of it. And well, but I did make the dress. You can see pictures on my Facebook. I think it came out quite similar looking. So it started from there.
Okay. What age? My English night is terrible. What age were you then when you did that?
Oh, what would that be? Maybe 7, 8, or so. So I obviously learned how to sew before. My grandmother had Singer, you know, the one with the handle that you have to open.
Singers, yeah.
Yeah, the really, really old one. She must have had it from maybe 40s or so. So I learned from there, and then started making doll clothing.
All right. So I take it you discovered you wanted to be a costumier from a very young age. What was your first step into realizing that?
Oh, hard to say, because it's one thing you want to do it and you dream about it, and another is the reality, which for me at the time was professional synchronized swimming. Right. So I was as far from design work as anything, and then a lot of other things came in the way. But I think the main point must have been when I discovered Wave Gothic Treffen. You know, the festival. Yeah, the festival which is happening now this weekend. So when I've been there first time and I've seen how people are dressed, I was speechless. I couldn't believe that there are events nowadays where people can wear the things I was making for my dolls, but you can wear them today. I was absolutely blown away. And so, of course, for the next year's festival, I was already determined to make something absolutely spectacular. And I didn't have a machine at the time or any money, but with help of bed sheets and charity shops and all kinds of flea market, like €1 here and there, and sewing mostly by hand. So it started then.
It's quite a story already. So what was your big first project? Do you recall that?
Big, like properly, not just cutting a hole in the middle of something and calling it a skirt.
Yeah, basically. Because for which bands have you made costuming by now?
I cannot say at the moment because I'm negotiating actually with one band, but I've been making clothes now for a few years for an opera singer, Maya from Holland, and she's a professional opera singer.
Ooh. All right.
Yeah, so she's wearing, and I'm also making something for her at the moment. But the really big project that I realized that I'm actually doing this for other people now was some years ago in Finland. I was actually making something for Leipzig, for Treffen, for my friend David, who is a DJ. He travels the world and DJs at all those historical fancy fairy tale things.
Right.
And so I was making actually him a Napoleonic coat, which he still wears, and it came out really well. So that was a really big project for me at the time.
All right. So, what is your favorite type of costuming? Is it like a fantasy or is it the historical? Because you do a lot of both.
I like to mix. Alex, to tell you the truth, I like historical fashion very much, and I like fantasy. But I guess I'm somewhere in between, really, because I don't like historical reconstruction, because you have to be then very exact, and there is very little room to invent and be
Right.
crazy creative. Yeah, so I like to be based on historical shapes, like the Rococo skirts or the Victorian bustle is my absolute favorite, but then go really crazy on the designs and use strange fabrics or make a really weird hat that historically wouldn't be accurate and obviously wouldn't have been worn like that, but I like this mix.
Mm-hmm. So, when you are trying to make up something, like, well, you can see it, but the coat you made for me, it's up there in the corner, the one with the gun shells. So how did the process went? How did you come up with the ideas that you put into that?
Well, of course, we spoke about what you like, and I was following your pictures and what you've done before, and to get the feel of your style, and also the way you accessorize, because you have your very unique styling, which is very recognizable. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, practicality is very important. So the choice of fabric and the cut, so that you could actually wear it and sit and do your acts and camps and things like this. And then, of course, I'm heavy on the decoration. So if you look on the coat, there are all kinds of embroideries and little bullet holes and weird buttons and burnt leather, which I love making very much, although my apartment still smells like burnt rubber, thanks to you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So, but I like using unusual material. So for this one, I had a lot of this rubber-like fake leather. And to get this effect as if you've survived the apocalypse and you are somewhere where you cannot work with materials in a way you would if you had a sewing machine. So I was burning the edges and the little molten bits that would be stuck on it. I thought just would add to the character of the coat.
Oh yeah, it's a beautiful coat. I'm really proud to have one. We have some remarks in the comments. Darren, great to be here. 12 DDs, he's from Germany. Well, I know a little German. Actually, I know a lot of German. Again, good. 12 DD. How much effort does it take to make one costume? Could you answer that?
Yeah, it's a lot of effort. It's a lot of handwork, and you can always tell that I've been sewing when my nails are completely short and I have red bits hanging off it. It's usually mince work in progress, because I do a lot of handwork and I use very thin needles. And it's a lot of patience and a lot of unpicking and a lot of very unladylike language sometimes comes out.
I can imagine.
So it's a lot of it's a lot of time and a lot of work, but I love every minute of it. That's true.
Important.
That is.
Let's see. Darren again, hello from the USA. Jill Kate, yes, hello from Brazil, by the way. 12DD, well, everyone's doing it. So, greetings from Croatia. So we got a...
Asia.
Yes. Because you were originally from Russia, right?
That's right, Central Moscow.
All right. So when did you move to Germany?
Oh, many times. This time in 2011, time before 2002.
Right.
So altogether, I've been on the road, so to say, from 1997.
All right.
So I was just a very small teenager at the time, barely.
Why do you move so much? Is that because of your daytime job, or is there something else going on there?
I like to change. To tell you the truth, I like new places, new impressions. I need this kind of, like new inspirations, new sights. I get used to places quite fast.
All right.
So every 3 or 4 years, I'm ready to go somewhere different.
All right. Have you lived in other countries? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Have you lived in other countries besides Germany?
Yes. When I first moved, I went to Latvia. So I was in Riga. After that, I was in England for 4 years. So I've traveled already within England. I've been to Scotland and different parts there. Then I came to southern Germany. I was in Baden-Württemberg. Then what happened? So that was 3 years. Then I went to Finland for 5 years and then came back to Germany. So now I've been here almost 6 years, which for me is quite a long time.
Right. Well, yeah, I can imagine that at one point it's, well, you're not that young anymore. So is there like a country you can imagine you can see yourself like, okay, here I can spend like the last 10 years of my life?
The last or the next?
Well, let's keep to this life.
Yeah. Well, until about 2 weeks ago, I was really thinking that I miss Scandinavia and I would have liked to try another country, maybe Sweden or Denmark. I've never been, so to see what life is like there. However, last week I was in London. I came back, with so great impressions, and I had so good time. Also, culturally, I've been to all those museums and exhibits and the Covent Garden Opera, and I was so impressed that now I'm thinking that maybe a couple of years in London would actually be very good, creatively also.
All right. So what is, well, you already mentioned you are negotiating with a band. Is there any particular project, any particular type of clothing you'd like to make in the future?
I'd love to really try making costumes for film. That's also a big dream at the moment. Also stage productions, but the really big ones, like also musicals or so, where they're really fairy tale, fantasy, really freaky looking, colorful costumes, things like this. For any kind of performing artist would be great, especially bands with a concept, which something that my stuff would fit to, not just a nice dress, but nice dress with a character, with the story behind. So at the Althea Festival, when was a month ago or so?
Yeah, a month or so.
Yeah, I've met this Italian orchestra, and they do this kind of Tim Burton style performances. So they do covers of, so something like this, So it's like a costume with a character.
Right. Let's see. I see another question in the chat. What is the hardest costume you've ever made?
Hardest costume. Alex, I have to say, I think yours is very close to.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that also because it was a male costume? Because I hear that male costumes are actually harder to make than female. Is that true?
It's true. Which you would think is kind of doesn't make sense, but somehow it is harder. And yeah, well, I know good-looking man, a well-dressed man when I see one, but imagine how I would dress him. I find it always harder than when I see a woman and how I would dress her.
Right. Okay.
I don't know if it's a design thing, if it's a personal, hard to say.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you make more male costumes, or do you make more female costumes than male costumes? Maybe that's also a thing.
Yeah, of course. Of course, I have a lot more female customers at the moment, but I also have a couple of male ones now lined up for the summer. And one of them I think will be also quite tricky. It's a very beautiful piece we'll be creating, but it's also tricky.
All right.
So, yeah, but I really hope to be making more male things in the future. I think we need more better dressed men in the scene.
Yeah, one problem I always have with acquiring clothes is like there are very few stores on convention festivals that actually sell clothes for men. I think it was on Bochum. I think it was okay. The Steampunk Jaarmarkt. I think it quite a selection, but it's often always the same. So yeah, I always look. So maybe there's something in there, but like a proper gilet or waistcoat or something, it's very hard to find. And pants, I always buy historical reproduction. Why do you think that is? Is there so little demand for male steampunk clothes? What is it?
Actually, the opposite. I think the demand is huge because I have a lot of men coming up to me with questions that how to make something and that they would like to have something, and they just end up ordering online, and everybody ends up having very generic stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Is it a problem we have with imagination, with designers who cannot come up with something interesting for men?
Dracula costuming has some good stuff, but it's also very recognizable. So yeah, you know, I bought a coat for a friend of mine. I think it's from Dracula, and I got that white coat. I'm not sure you know that one. Very thin white coat. Well, never mind. That's also from Dracula clothing. But yeah, you often have to order it online. But I did find that white coat originally on a convention, but it was not my size. So.
Oh, that's... Yeah, but the size is also the thing, because whatever you wear has to fit really well. And I think because women in the scene, they wear a lot more corsets, so the way things fit is a lot somehow.
Yeah, you can hide it better because you got a corset that always will take the shape of...
You can make things fit. You can buy something which maybe is not exactly your size, but with the right accessories and with a good corset, you can make it fit and it would look really good. But with men, you have to buy it and it has to fit right away. Maybe that's also the problem.
Yeah. So what's the solution to that issue? Should we encourage store owners to bring more male clothes? What can be done about that?
We definitely need to encourage. I would love to have more male customers, so do please contact us, and we'll do our best to create something unique for you. Also, it doesn't have to be completely crazy extravagant. It can be also more sort of simpler, that you can also maybe even combine with your daily wear. And what else? Request, I suppose, at events that there are also male fashion shows, also costume parade for men. Maybe do more of those competitions and things.
Yeah, there are not that many fashion competitions, I suppose. Those that do exist, there are more like, oh well, this is what steampunk looks like. But I guess it's a good segue. What to you makes a steampunk costume?
Oh, Alex, I like the word punk in it. I like the punk bit, because nobody actually knows what steampunk is and how it should look. But somebody started that it's brown and a lot of little bits that we don't know what those. And of course, I like this kind of freaky mad inventor style, but I really like the punk aspect. Queen Victoria flying to space, or when they first invented fingerprint techniques in the turn of the century, when that was crazy and nobody believed that would work, and all those kind of things. So for me, it's combining sort of the uncombinable with this crazy aspect, sort of the mad inventor feeling. And then it can be anything. It doesn't have to be brown or anything. It could be whatever you imagine. So that way I make my costumes. It's a Victorian silhouette, but it's made out of rubber or camouflage, fabric.
So, for the, I often get it question a lot. If I want to make a video on, like steampunk costuming, like how to do it on a budget, basically, what would your advice be to those people?
Budget. Well, what budget? I would say go to secondhand store and look for, well, old shirts, things that you can dye or modify. So, for example, I have a very nice jacket, which is in a Victorian style. This very fitted with a nice velvet collar and those poofy sleeves. But originally it was an 80s jacket with those gigantic shoulder pads and those ugly MC Hammer, horrible things. But if you take all this out, you have enough fabric to make the pleats and to modify it. And the jacket cost me maybe €5 or so, and then a little bit changing, and you got yourself a Victorian piece.
That is actually a very good idea. Yeah, that's why I need to ask such questions more, because then people come up, oh yeah, you can do that with that. It's like, yeah, of course you can.
That's it. And also important bit, Alex, fashion repeats itself in one way or another every 20 years or so. So if you think Victorian fashion, so long flowy skirts, we had that in 70s. So look for 70s clothes. There are lots of maxi long floor length dresses that if they're in cotton, you can change color, you can use the ruffles, you can make yourself some very nice outfits. Also male shirts at the time had, this jabot. Right,
yeah. Yeah, they, like, the time when Prince was big, they had all this really kind of how Louis XIV style stuff. And you can actually, especially in the ladies department, you can find a lot of shirts with the ruffles and that kind of stuff. Maybe you can even take those off and put them on male shirts, I'm not sure, but...
No, not a problem. And also, I wouldn't be afraid to look in another gender's department. So why can't you modify a woman's shirt if you want this extra ruffiness and, fluffiness? And likewise, I often buy from male section and then just change. You can make those great military pants or vests. There's lots of room to invent there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, I just got an idea. Now I forgot it right away. Oh, annoying. But yeah, what's the weirdest thing I've done with clothing? Well, repurpose the fabric for one. That's with the leather and so on and stuff. That's one. But yeah,
do you also make?
I also found like I'm not sure where they're from, but I also have some ladies' jackets, but they're like these really short. They come above the rib, but when a man puts them on. The problem is I'm often my shoulders are too wide often. But when I can put them on, I get this Han Solo look. The jacket that he wears. So that's kind of nice. But yeah, thrift stores are truly a gold mine for unique clothes.
Definitely.
Because I dress like this on a daily basis, I often then I find this really is it called plaid? Like you've got all the stripes, the vertical and horizontal stripes. Yeah, and then I buy them in like a purple or a very odd green color, and people are like, oh, well, that's weird, but apparently nobody else dares to wear them, so...
Radio Retrofuture has been made possible by the Groene Vee Absinthe, some of the best artisanal absinthe from the Netherlands. You can find their selections of homemade absinthe, both white and green, on thegroenevee.nl/en, or click the link down in the description.
It's weird how people react to strange styles.
But it's nice.
Oh, yes. So what is your daily dress like? Would you consider it, well, steampunkish, so to speak?
Of course, I wear this blouse to work, for example. I can come also with gloves on, or an extravagant headpiece. It's not a problem, but I'm very fortunate to have a job where all my fashion experiments are very welcome. And I understand that, yeah, that one. Some people have jobs where you have to follow a dress code, or you have to be smart casual or so. So of course it's another story, but I dress quite extravagantly, and it's a daily norm for me that on my way to work people stop me to take a picture.
Okay. I do something wrong, apparently.
Well, you can always do something differently.
Well, maybe I should. Let's see, we've got 2 more messages. Landship Scorpios. Hello everyone from New England. Steampunks. Hello, Landship Scorpios. 12D again.
Hello.
Miss Marina, do you ship your costumes internationally?
Absolutely. No problem there.
Yeah.
Geography is only a word.
Okay. I 12D, were you from Croatia? Now I need to check where you were from. Let's see. No, I can't find it right away. Anyway, I'm sure it won't be a problem. So yeah, but you talked about cycles in fashion, and one thing I noticed, because I live so close to work now, I'm looking to get a scooter for myself. So I chose one. But one thing I really noticed, all of a sudden I'm looking at all these scooters like, ooh, what's that? What's that? I never looked at those things before, but now I want one. And I noticed all these retro designs, and also when you look at radios, for example, or media players, anything really you can find, you see all these retro designs. So I'm thinking about this, like, what is that? Why is all this retro coming back now? Like this 70s and early 20s style scooters and radios and whatever. Is that something you think about, and why that happens now?
I think we are missing in modern fashion a lot of this, how to say, romanticism, would you say? The romance that
right.
Yeah, when you think about the fashion of the vintage, of the retro styles, when women wore feminine and men wore hats, and everything was so stylish that you wouldn't leave your home without gloves and your little hat and things. And what do we wear today? Jeans which miss the knee part, and everything is totally ripped and oversized, and you cannot tell it, is it a man or a woman wearing it? So I think a lot of it comes from the need. We still want this romantic dreaminess.
Yeah.
I think like that.
Well, especially when I look at male fashion, what I see my colleagues wear to work and stuff. Like there are few that actually have that like that. I'll call it classic masculinity, like the waistcoats, and they pay attention to their appearance. But for a lot of males, it's almost like they are afraid to, I don't know, like they're afraid to I don't know, express that for some reason. Like they wear the shirts over their waist, so you don't see the shape of their body, and stuff like that. And, that's something that I like, to see the shape of the waist. Did you think that men are afraid to express that side of themselves, or are they discouraged from doing so? I'm not sure. Maybe you have some.
I think it's worse. I don't think they think about. I think our ideas of aesthetics and what's beautiful have so been shifted with the gender roles, with the modern, equality and all those topics. So of course it affects fashion also. And I think a lot of people, like you said, who have maybe this courage to really stand out, because imagine among the majority today, if your daily clothes is a 3-piece suit with a little watch chain and a hat,
Mhm.
and you show up in your university like this, your friends will, laugh at you.
Are you trying to find a way to build up your steampunk lifestyle? Or are you just looking for an original gift? Check out Steam Chest and get a subscription box mailed to your door every month. It's a surprise box that contains up to 6 items, ranging from music, ebooks, to t-shirts with original art. For more information, check out their subscription plans on chestofsteam.com.
Probably.
Well,
So,
I don't know. I do see. I do notice that, or at least in commercials like over here, they do seem to champion that chap ideal, where they have these protagonists in videos with men looking like chaps and bowler hats, and so there does seem to be some kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like respect for that look. But yeah, there's also, well, you know, it's kind of the gender politics that we have these days, unfortunately, that also kind of vilifies that. So I think there are like these two different currents working against one another. I don't know.
yeah, must be. Must be. But I agree with you. I would love to see that more today. But nowadays, if you want to see that, you have to go to a theme party or some kind of show or so, a reenactment.
12DD. Nowadays, people only want to fit in, and they are only going to wear the things that their friends or families wear. Yeah,
You are
maybe.
so right.
Yeah, I can't deny that. There's a lot of truth in that. I wonder what I notice, what I find fascinating about steampunk fashion, so to speak. That you talked about the crazy inventors, and of course we already talked about male fashion. That steampunk seems to kind of revive that old ideal of like not so much the powerful man, but the man that doesn't mind being seen, I suppose. But when I look at a lot of female fashion in steampunk, I do feel like, yes, it's hyper feminine, but it's also kind of masculine. Do you think that's correct?
Well, it's hard to judge. I first of all look at aesthetics, and if it's beautiful to the eye, if everything fits nicely, and the colors and the accessories, if it's right or not, well, who is to say? But a steampunk woman, she's a rebel in herself, because at the time that we are talking about, the end of 19th century, women were only, you cannot imagine woman inventor or woman who would invent a car or drive one, all those things. So I think it's great that this idea of, again, combining the uncombinable, this mix.
Kind of going back to how you encountered, the alternative scene, so to speak, on Wave Goth Trevor. Why, of all the things that were there, because I take it was a lot of goth, a lot of metal. Why steampunk? Why does that pop out so much?
Because, like you mentioned earlier, bustle dresses are my absolute favorite silhouette. And then, of course, time-wise, it fits together. When you think steampunk, you think of a bustle, of course. And I like this inventing. I like mixing strange things, coming up with new ideas to use materials, to reuse a pattern, but in an unexpected way. Like, what if Scarlett O'Hara was in Soviet army? What would she wear?
Right.
Kind of Alice Wonderland gone completely futuristic.
All right. Let's see, 12DD. Talking about mess scientists, I've just remembered the scientist outfits from the DLC Old World Blues from Fallout New Vegas. I'll try to find a picture on it of Google. I think it will fit perfectly for the mess scientist costumes you're talking about. Okay. That was something I just wanted to ask, so thank you. You were talking about it. Did you take a lot of inspiration from things like movies, video games, books?
Absolutely. I'm not much of a video game person, so I can't say about that. But movies definitely. And there is one TV series from Canada. It's called Murdoch Mysteries. It's already 12 years or so in them. Have you heard?
Yeah, I saw you post like it's already 12 seasons or something, or a lot of seasons.
It's great. It's great. It's such a good series. And to me, this is exactly steampunk. Because Murdoch is a detective and he's solving murder, but by inventing his own devices, which at the time, because it's set exactly this turn of the century, so everybody's like completely, what is this? How can you take a fingerprint? Or how can you listen to somebody talking with those? And then he invents those very freaky looking headphones. And then he meets Tesla and they invent something together. So, and of course he has a lady partner who is helping, but then she's also dressed in a very feminine and a very historically appropriate way, but also to fit her character. So she has a tie on and her little suitcase with all those devices inside. Take a lot of inspiration from those kind of things.
And
so you can still...
That was Murdoch Mysteries. I'm asking because Lensship Scorpios was asking it. Yes. So Murdoch Mysteries. Yeah, and it does sound really fascinating. It kind of reminds me of an older series. I'm not sure it's older. Well, maybe it is by now. Warehouse 13.
I've heard of that.
Yes.
What is that?
Well, basically, it's also rather steampunkish. And it's about a kind of, well, let's call it a magical warehouse. That's filled with all kinds of devices, jewelry, clothing, well, anything you would possibly imagine that have special properties. They all have particular stories behind them, like they belong to famous inventors or stuff like that, and somehow the particular nature of those individuals stuck on those objects. So you get all kinds of crazy stuff. And you have these investigators that basically have to search for these special items and contain them in the warehouse. So there are a lot of references to historical individuals. Other times there are more like ghost stories. Others create all kinds of weird anomalies. So it's also kind of like another series on the internet, which is called SCP, Secure, Contain, and Protect. That's more horror based, but it also has all these crazy anomalies in it. And it all started out as purely text-based stories that are all put in the context of this special institute called SCP. So it's immensely powerful. They've got people everywhere in the world. However, everything they encounter kills about everything it can. So yeah, they are really dark stories. I mean, I'm talking about school buses that eat their passengers. But it also has like we all know the Yeti, right? And they have this entire story that takes the whole Yeti thing a completely different direction. It's really insane what they've all come up with. They've got a character called the Plague Doctor, which all has its own story that's all contained within one of their countless facilities. You just have to get used to the fact that he has, like, zombie cows walking around in his cell from time to time. All these things. And one story, I think... There are some stories that will attract steampunks. Like, one of them is The Machine. Which is a machine that demands metal. And if it doesn't get metal, it makes this horrible screeching sound. So people will, just to silence it, throw metal in it. And then they run out of metal. And then the whole situation gets really, really dark. Like, where can we get more metal from? And that's all I'm gonna say about that, because it's really dark. And another story I love is Un London. which basically is a replica of London they find under the real London, in a kind of Victorian style. But look it up on London. Great story, and there are several channels on YouTube that have audiobook versions of them. So
Yeah, sounds great.
yes, it is. It is. It's like, I'm not into horror or anything, but like SCP, it is like written by all these different authors, you know, and somebody pitches an idea, and some people finish it by themselves, others collaborate finishing the story, and it's like, you know, the items can be from really special joints to like a kind of alien device on Mars that's probably broken and the only reason he hasn't destroyed the Earth yet. So, yeah, it also has this really Lovecraftian, a lot of the stories have a really Lovecraftian vibe to them, so it's, yeah. I think you'll find some inspiration there, because, oh man, I'd like to do something with that at some point. I really do.
Lovecraft is inspiration.
Yes. Let's see. Which series I missed it? Yes, looks good. Warehouse 13 is good. It has steampunk elements. Historic artifacts with magical properties or amazing inventions. Yes, that's Warehouse 13. Let's see, and 12DD. While I'm searching for a good picture, what can Miss Marini tell me about the procedures of creating a costume?
The procedure.
Yes.
Well, first of all, you need a customer who's very excited about what we are going to do. So it starts there, and then I can give you an example. I made a Victorian wedding dress, an alternative wedding dress for a customer, and she came to me only with very few specifications. She only said that she wants a bustle and that it needs to be dark, maybe one other color, but the main thing is that she wants a lot of buttons, and that's it. And so okay, we get you buttons. So I have a huge library here with all kinds of books and references, so I went to look what would fit, and then of course you have to look at the shape and the person and all those things, and then I found the silhouette, which I thought would be the right kind of design for her, all the details. So I went to find the fabric. That often takes a big part of the creation, because you have to find something that fits right, and not just by the color but also texture, because the way it falls, the way it will, if you want to drape it or fold it, if it will hold shape, if it will just hang there, also you have to think all those things. So finding the fabric, and then you start making. First maybe you make mock-up parts of it, so for the first fitting you will see how things fit and what needs changing, because I use historical patterns, and they're mostly, you get just one pattern, no instructions, and they tell you adjust accordingly. Good luck.
Oh man.
So yeah, so you have to do a lot of fiddling before it actually comes together in the right height and length, and of course we are taller and bigger than the men wore then. Yeah.
All right. Well, 12DD, very interesting. Well, I'm happy you're satisfied. So yeah, we're almost an hour in. Have we talked about everything you wanted to discuss?
Yeah, I think so, Alex. What do you think?
Yeah, sure. Unless you have something to ask me, or have to ask, if you want to ask the audience something, you're free to do so.
Yeah, maybe people can tell what their favorite outfits are, or if they want to see more, maybe cosplay-like, or maybe, I don't know, superhero-inspired. What would they like to see in what we do?
To the people that see this after the edited version has been posted, please let us know in the comments. Landscript Sorpios. Alright, I must leave for work soon. I will leave one question. How difficult do you think it is for a large steampunks to find amazing outfits?
I don't think it's difficult. I think it's a matter of having taste and eye to combine things nicely. I think size, in this case, doesn't matter because nowadays you can find everything. And if you cannot find what you want, you can find fabric and people like me who are happy to make things for you.
All right.
So I think just keep an eye out.
Right. I think that's a good segue. Where can people find you and contact you?
Please contact me on Facebook. I think it's the fastest way. Otherwise, it has my phone number and emails, everything there. And if you want another way, then go to my webpage and the contacts there also. Everything works, and I'm happy to hear from you.
Yes, which is Marisha, correct?
That's
yes.
Right.
And of course, all the links will be down in the description, so you can click and find it there. With that, I think it's time for final words of inspiration. Can you, do you have some words of inspiration or another message you want to leave the audience?
Oh, I should just be brave. Wear whatever you want. Be happy with it. And just go. Don't follow fashion. Follow your inspirations. Create fashion.
Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being on, Marisha. I'm sure to contact you in a month or so when I've got some things that are going on here done. And of course, thank you all, wonderful viewers, for being with us today. And thank you for all your questions. I'm not sure when I'm going to do the next stream, but I'm sure to announce it on Facebook. So please follow us there on Radio Retrofuture. And of course, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and check us out on Patreon. We have a preview version of the second season of Radio Retrofuture for Fallout. For the people that want to follow the crazy adventures of Balthazar Gerards and ASP. So that's for the people that want to support us on Patreon. Yes, as always, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna bid you adieu. And of course, make things your way. Good night.